This in the invocation and the pledge.
Please stand and join us. Heavenly Father, again, we thank you for this opportunity to come tonight and serve our citizens of this county. Lord, I just ask for you to bless our nation as we continue to be in such turmoil, God, and we just pray for those that were injured and killed in the incident out in Las Vegas, God, that you be with those families. Lord, I just ask that you bless us here tonight with wisdom as we carry out the duties of the county. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
All right.
And if you'd like to speak on an agenda item, you can speak on each individual agenda item. Please fill out a speaker card with Miss Patty up front here. Also, 2 opportunities for citizens to be heard. You can speak on any item, either the first one or the second one. When you come up, please give us your name and address and speak into the microphone so the folks at home can hear you as well. Any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, if I can move up my item up under the presentations, so we can just dispose of that at that time.
Okay.
Motion to approve the agenda is amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. No citizens to be heard, Patty? All right. So we'll go into awards and presentation. Miss Sabrina, I see you're out there. Come on forward. Miss Sabrina Williams with Refuge House.
Welcome back.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to do the proclamation for Wakulla County as far as this is October and this is Domestic Violence Month. So right here is a Wakulla County proclamation declaring October 17th as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas domestic violence is an epidemic in our nation, state, and county, resulting in thousands of battered victims, traumatized children with broken families each year, crossing all economic, racial, and social barriers. And whereas the children in violent homes are also in danger of victimization and are more likely to succumb to drug abuse, truancy, and emotional disturbance, are likely to exhibit violent and unlawful behavior in later life than children raised in abuse-free homes. And whereas domestic violence is both a violation of an individual privacy, security, and humanity, and it is a crime which impacts the society as a whole, then we conclude that perpetrators of domestic violence will be held accountable for their actions. And now, therefore, we, Wakulla County Board of Commissioners, do hereby declare the month of 2017 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And in the county of Wakulla, we ask that all our citizens join together to declare the county of Wakulla a zero tolerance zone for domestic violence. Further, we ask our citizens to work with the established agency and as individuals to provide women and children in the safety which should be their rights.
You want to make a motion to adopt the proclamation, Mike?
I do, to make October 2017 Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Wakulla County.
Second.
Motion second. Do we have any citizens? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you. Keep up the good work. That will need to be signed.
Thank you for what you do.
We have the one to be signed.
Okay.
Take that home with you. That'll be your personal copy.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
What? Sorry, Jessica said she needs it back.
If you'll give it to Patty, and we'll get you a signed one tomorrow.
Keep it straight.
What do I know? I guess that's a public record now, huh?
There you go. All right. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved on the
consent?
consent.
Second.
Motion
I
and
already
second?
did that.
No, that was the agenda.
That was the agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. No consent items pulled. We'll go into general business, item number 5.
Yes, this is a request for the board's approval to consider an application for reduction of code enforcement liens pertaining to case number CE 2015-479 for property located at 2 Carroll Drive. In July of 2015, the Code Enforcement Board found this property in violation for construction activities without permits. The property remained in violation until July of this year. The Code Enforcement Board recommended that the board reduce the lien in the amount of $1,775.26, which represents the estimated cost for prosecuting the case.
I make a motion to reduce the lien to hard costs, $1,775.26.
And they also recommended with the condition that it be satisfied within 60 days.
I'll add that to my motion.
I second. Have a motion second. Any citizens? Further discussion?
Yes. So I'm have to oppose this one. The reason I have to oppose it is basically this is the blueprint to get around our code enforcement. If this was an arm's length transaction where two parties transferred ownership and the new owner wasn't aware of the code enforcement lien, I could agree to relieve this. But this wasn't an arm's length transaction. It was a transfer from father to son. And there's an agreement in place that transfers it back to the father, okay, at any time he wants. That's no longer, a real transaction. That seems to be just designed to get around our code enforcement, because one of our reasons to give this is if it's a new owner and a new situation. So I can't vote for this.
Is what Chuck's saying, I'm not saying it's not accurate, but explain to me is there a reversionary clause or something like that in the deed, or
I have not seen the agreement.
is it in the agreement, Chuck, or in the deed?
It's a agreement that was put in place at the same time of the mortgage. And it's basically...
And you find that as a public record, I'm sorry?
Public record.
Okay.
Okay.
On the clerk of the courts.
On the clerk of the
Can I
courts.
look at it? Sure.
So it goes back to the back.
He's right.
For
Says, can I read it?
Yeah.
In the event Rick, which I guess is the owner, the dad,
Mhm.
in the event Rick decides...
He was the original owner that the lien was against, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. In the event Rick desires to exercise his option to purchase, the terms of purchase shall be as follows. Rick may purchase the property back at the original amount it was sold to the Matt, which I guess is son, for $145,000, less any sum still owed on the mortgage from Matt to Rick.
And the mortgage was a 100% mortgage at $145,000.
And I don't know, I agree with you. I don't know if that was their intent or if he was just say, well, if you don't pay me, because I guess he financed it for him, for his son, or...
Well, then he could just take it back, okay?
I think you got a valid point.
Yeah,
And,
we
to me,
gotta
this
be
is
careful about a theory of why this happened and what it's about. I mean, I don't know. I mean, certainly there's an option to buy it back. We see that, but the motivation behind that, I don't know.
And I don't think we can condition our approval, because let's say that wasn't the intent. It wasn't the intent to get rid of the code enforcement lien and then buy it back. And we can't put anything, we can't condition I mean, we did it pay within 60 days, but we can't say if the dad buys it back, then the code enforcement, the lien is back in effect, right?
There's no really way to track that and then have a lien magically spring back up.
Right.
Yeah, but we could not deny it, and then if he wants to, what we could do is if we wanted to approve it, he would have to come back with this nulling this agreement. I mean, they can still do it later if he wants to, but having an official, agreement where Matt has no option, okay, because if Rick decides he wants it back, he gets it back. That's just seems
The
off.
only, I see what you're saying, and I agree with you. The only difficulty with that is we're anticipating that was the intent. We can't swear that was the intent.
No,
but
we can't.
It looks like that was the intent, and we're anticipating.
But it is the blueprint to get around our code enforcement if we allow this to go forward.
And I haven't seen a case like that before, to be honest with you. Of course, I don't go search the public records either.
This was done up by a real estate lawyer, and he understood, exactly. He looked at our rules, and one of our reasons we give it is transfer of ownership. We give relief, and so.
And I agree. My whole premise behind this is that I don't want to reward the original offender you know, if somebody buys it and they clean it up, then,
I'm with you there, but that's not what's happened here, in my opinion.
and I'm with Jerry, I mean, I agree, but I don't know for sure, and I'm scared, you know, to just throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Has the property been cleaned up?
Yeah. it's
The
in
matter's been
compliance now.
rectified.
But I do appreciate you, I really do, looking in, I
This-
never would have thought.
Basically, this, this looks like that it was to circumvent the cost, but they're still having to pay our costs, which is substantial, $1,000 or whatever.
Yeah, but the part of code enforcement is to make sure our community's safe and make sure that the people are following the rules, okay? If they come up with a good way to basically circumvent our rules, then what good, you know, we've basically taken all the teeth out of code enforcement. So people are not, you know, that inclined, oh, I can always get around it.
Let's say, Chuck,
okay?
we said we're gonna delay forgiving the lien for 5 years, or whatever. We'll say if it stays in constant ownership for 5 years, we'll go ahead and do the cost reduction. I don't know if we can even do that, but what does that accomplish if they simply wait 5 years and then transfer it back to the dad?
I can understand that, but to me, this is a way to get the lien off the property quickly, and that means usually somebody wants to sell the property, which is when the time the lien would be satisfied, or somebody would have to get the lien off the property. This circumvents that.
Would this lien not have been removed anyway with them paying us the dollars?
$73,000, yeah.
Yeah, so it would have been removed anyway.
If they'd have paid us $73,000.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got you. But we are basically not charging the 73. We're given an abeyance of liens based on us getting our costs back. So would we
Right,
have
but
not?
why are we having these rules? Do we want people to come to, when they have a problem, to fix it quickly so we don't have to go through this process? Because if every time we give relief, then they'll always, you know, there's no incentive to quickly satisfy, you know, fix their mistakes, fix the problem that they're being.
I think in most cases, don't most banks go ahead and just pay it if they do a foreclosure?
Not all the time.
But a lot of times they do.
They can wipe them out. If they have if the mortgage has superior lien to the code enforcement lien, it will get wiped out. Now, if there's proceeds, you get to share in any excess proceeds.
I think you have a very valid point, Chuck.
We could actually put an addition to our forgiveness. The forgiveness would be our cost plus 30%.
We've talked about this several times, but nothing's ever been done.
Or you could address the arm's length transaction that he mentioned, that it has to be
With
an arm's
all due
length.
respect, on the arm's length, it's hard to prove intent.
It is.
This right here is,
Well,
we're making the
But
assumption that
still,
they're going to.
still, an arm's length transaction would seem to indicate the, you know,
Sure.
the intent wasn't there. It's a transaction. Where when you have this arm's length transaction where it's father to son, that's not, it's a
Dicey.
little dicier.
Well,
Again, I agree with you.
and
Go ahead.
I think the concern is to make sure that this doesn't become a norm to
That's
bypass
right.
the
If you
system.
if you do it once, and they'll see it as a norm, and then it's going to be hard to turn it down every time it happens.
Well, we can
And-
turn it down, though. If we see this same thing come across again, we can readjust the rules. We can have the forgiveness plus 30% or forgiveness.
Well,
Like in this case, we're taking our cost back. It's $1,000 plus. So we would say, very good, we'll get rid of the 73, but it's 1,000 plus 50%, 1,500. So it still burns a little bit.
Well, and I don't think it'll be widely abused. One,
I think
arm's
that
length
wasn't
or
free.
non-arm's length, no, they had to pay dock stamps and intangible tax on this transaction
Actually,
to
on
the
a
state.
on a family transfer, there's very little cost.
There's still a mortgage, so there's still dock stamps that's gonna be paid.
It would have been much cheaper
the-
off to go
to
ahead
the
and
state
fix
on
the
it.
code violation than to do what they did. They're going through a lot of trouble, if that's what they're really doing.
Not only that, but if there was a mortgage on this property, that mortgage would have to be satisfied. So there would be a lot of maneuvering that would have to go into place in order to do this.
The warranty, I don't think he had to satisfy a mortgage if he's holding the existing mortgage.
No, not if he's holding it, for
He's
sure,
holding
but
the
that,
existing mortgage.
most
He's-
people aren't in that situation, though.
He's-
I'm thinking about other folks trying to abuse this. If
Well-
the company I work for, if we had the mortgage on it and Dad buys it, well, Dad's got to pay off that mortgage or we're going to call the loan due. So I don't think it's something that's going to be widely abused, but people that own their property free and clear or have a privately held mortgage could certainly do that.
Yeah, I agree that.
But when you can put this in place, because this agreement, even in an arm's length transaction, this agreement would allow you to pull it back if you just had a buddy that wanted to do it, okay? And was willing to, sign for the papers, bingo, he can pull it back as soon as the lien is off.
But it would have to be paid off, basically, right, to be able to do this,
Well,
even relatively easily.
From father to son, that's not really.
What do you mean paid off? There's 140, he mortgaged it for $145,000. It's
With
a
a private mortgage.
non-interest, with an interest-only mortgage
Yeah, well,
To his son.
to his son.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, in order for the dad to have to be able to done this in the first place, the house would have to be paid off completely,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Not have a mortgage on it from Nations First or whatever.
legally, I mean, you can record a deed on anyone, but if the lender finds out, they'll call the loan due, so.
Let me ask this, Chuck, I'm on board with you, but how do we fix it tonight? I mean, do we approve it with,
I don't think we can do it for conditions, but we could table it and come back with a way to stop this in the future and address this, I guess.
I don't
Or
think you can.
just let it sit out there, because it's not going anywhere.
Well, I'd be afraid of handling this with new rules retroactively. I say we deal with this, and if we're gonna make changes, let's change them going forward.
Well, then we need to give the planning and zoning a direction to move forward with coming up with some, if we're gonna give forgiveness, on as easy as we give it, there needs to be a penalty involved. There is a penalty involved, not just hard
I
times.
agree. We had that, when I got briefed today, we had that long discussion about, not this, but that very thing was, it's too easy. Everybody knows that if I just wait, I'll get a forgiveness. It's an application for forgiveness. It's gonna happen, and that's okay. We're getting our hard costs. I'm okay with that, but it's too easy.
And like I've said, I'm not disagreeing with you at all, but the point of code enforcement is to correct issues, either not build permit or clean up a site.
I agree.
Once that site gets cleaned up and we get our money back, I'm satisfied, to be honest with you. Because like in Lake Ellen, for example, there was plenty of places with broken windows on mobile homes, abandoned. If those would just simply get cleaned up, hauled off, and and the citizens are nothing out of pocket, I'm fine with that. And I do appreciate what you're saying, though. I think it has validity. I just don't know how we can make a rule that we don't know a definitive answer. We're speculating on intent. We don't know that that's what they're trying to do. And I don't know if there's a way we can form a rule to prevent that. If there is, I'd be all for it. I got no problem with that. But I don't know if there's a way we can do it. We're going to have to speculate on their intent, and I don't think we can make a rule based on speculation. I think you're right. Let me go ahead and say that. But I don't know you're right. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and as far as I've seen these last few years, we've always gotten at least hard cost, and sometimes a little bit more in some situations, so that means the taxpayers are not picking up the tab. So
Right.
we're
And
we're
I've said many
correcting the
times-
discrepancy, and we're getting the hard cost back.
I've said many times I think we should be hard cost plus 10%, 15%,
Well, that's-
whatever.
Do we get
And that's the floor.
let's call it labor, do we get our costs back, but do we get anything for the
Staff
time and,
factors in administrative costs, the
and
time
effort
for
that you put in.
inspection, the
Copies,
attorney's time, advertisement for code board,
We're getting all that.
certified mail
Get all
notice.
that back, but
All
personally,
that's factored into
get
the
our
estimate.
Well, no, we don't.
yes,
have
we're
our-
getting our time, citizens are paying for our time.
I think,
But I think we should set a floor at like 100 and whatever, 20% that we ourselves can't go below. So in this case, we couldn't have went to $1,700, which is hard cost. The lowest we could have went, say, was $2,000. And we'll set our limit on ourselves, no matter what the scenario. And,
well, you move it up to where it hurts, say like 130%.
well, not necessarily,
Well, you're forgiven 73,000.
I understand, but there's a lot of situations like the one in Sop Choppy, where the dad had code enforcement liens and he died, and the daughter inherited the property and cleaned it up I don't want to punish somebody
Yeah.
in that situation.
That's true.
You know what I
I
mean?
wouldn't want to punish somebody in that situation, but that situation, they, you know, basically, the code enforcement lien should have only been applied to, in that situation, to the daughter after she took possession with a grace period to make the correction.
The lien went with the property which she
I know,
inherited.
and
Some of
that
you
lien-
remember.
That lien should have been released because the father incurred that lien.
And we did, well, and we did. We
But it's
reduced it
not
to
on the
hard, we
person,
reduced it
it's
to
the
hard
property.
costs, right?
And they didn't pay it.
Okay, but anyway, thank you. But let's say you had a
Pay the hard
situation
cost?
where they
So-
did pay it.
That's still hanging out there then?
Well, forget that case then. Let's say another one, where somebody buys a foreclosure that's trashed out, and they spend the money to fix it up, and then they come back and ask for forgiveness of that lien. I'm all in support of that.
I think they're right, Chuck. We can't speculate that that may be what they do. Even though it's obvious that that's probably what they're going to do, we don't know that. So we can't go down that road. So I think, I agree with the chairman, we got to dispose of it tonight. And
But I do appreciate you discovering this. And try to think of a way that we can legally prevent it. I'd be all for it. But it has to be definitive. It can't be, we think this is what they're going to do. You know, maybe there's something I don't know, some definition or...
But I do like the idea of coming back and having it be cost plus something, some percentage. I don't know
Well,
what that
let's
is.
bring it back at cost, at some percentage at, that we add on to our hard cost,
Yeah, I can do that.
okay?
Okay.
And that's, 130% hard cost.
Unwaivable.
Yeah, it's not,
No matter what the situation, you can't waive it below that level.
right.
That way it takes the decision out of our hands.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Sounds like a good agenda item, Chuck.
What's that number? I mean, we want to come up with
30%.
We'll bring you something back, if that's you can say 30, but I'll bring you it. We have to amend the code, so we'll draft an ordinance, and you can bring it back for you guys to
Staff's
consider.
got plenty to do already.
We'll handle that, so Summer doesn't have
And
to.
I guess we'll move ahead, Mr. Chairman. My motion's going to stand, but I appreciate you, Chuck, look into that.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1. All right, we'll go to item number 6, general business.
This is another request for the board's approval of an application for code enforcement lien reduction pertaining to case number CE 2015-1216 for property located at 134 Ann Circle. In March of 2016, the Code Enforcement Board found the property to be in violation of Section 6-20 paren 4, specifically related to an unsecured swimming pool. The property did not gain compliance until August 1st of this year, and at September 13th Code Board hearing, the Code Enforcement Board recommended denial of the lien reduction request. Currently, the lien is in the amount of $48,850, and staff's estimated hard cost is $1,892.70.
I recommend, I move reduction down to the hard cost, $1,892, which was staff recommendation, right, Summer?
Yes,
Option
Is
2.
that option number 2 with the
That is
60
correct.
days?
with 60 days.
Well, 60 days, yeah, second.
Motion second. Any citizens? Further discussion?
This
Yeah, I have it.
You want to go ahead, Jerry? Okay, this one, while I can agree, the person that inherited the property went it into foreclosure, okay? It was Countrywide, the mortgage holder. They transferred it for some remuneration to another holding company. These people don't have a lot of money invested in this property, I would expect. But my point, the problem I have is even though they took control of it 6 months ago, okay, it took them there were 6 months before they fixed the problem, and they knew it from day one. And they weren't financially limited, there wasn't any problem. Now, I could see give them 30 days to fix it. So now I can see forgiving everything before they took ownership of it. But since that period, they've known that they had this problem, and they left this problem out in our community, okay? And that doesn't seem right to me.
But what they say, I'm not arguing with you, said, I had the pool covered with a HUD-approved cover, which is the code in Leon and other counties. I don't know if it is or not.
Well, they're doing business in Wakulla County, they should know Wakulla County
I guess
code.
Wakulla County's code says you have to put a 4-foot fence around it. If it's an accessory structure, if it's not an accessory structure, it has to be a 6-foot fence, right?
That's correct. And I will say that based on our first inspection of the site after they claimed it to be compliant, it was literally a tarp with some boards
Okay.
holding it
And
down.
that's not code.
Yeah.
That's
I'm just telling you what was
dangerous.
filled out. I
Okay.
had no idea. What
And that's just dangerous. And so this is one that they left a dangerous situation in our community for 6 months, but 5 months where they should have had it fixed.
So is there a recommendation of, I mean, our two choices are either reduce the hard costs or not, right? Is that it?
That's up,
I
the
would
board has
recommend
the
we-
discretion.
I would recommend we reduce the cost to just the one since, after they took possession, give them 30 days to have fixed it, and then the hard cost, and the lien since
How
then.
much is it, $150 a day?
It's $250 for the first day, $100 for every day thereafter.
So what would the number be?
100 for, you want $100 for 5 months? I don't know. I don't
You
know
have to
what-
give me a minute.
If there's 30 or 31
For 5 months, $100,
$3,000 a month, that's
30.
100,
days a month,
right?
that's
I didn't do the
another.
math. I can't.
If we're just assuming, I don't know what months there are, if there's
Yeah, I was
31
trying to
days or
see
30
when they
days. So
actually
if I
took
assume that
possession.
they're all 30 days, it's, at $100 a day, that's $3,000.
How much?
Oh, no, that's 30.
$30,000.
Times 5. Duh.
$15,000.
Calculator right here, what's the,
And I don't know what to do with interest.
30 times 6 times 100.
That's around 15,000.
With no interest. I mean, if you want to do interest, you're going to have.
All right, let's assume, Chuck, let's follow your logic. Let's assume they were given a code violation the day they took possession.
Right.
Okay?
Well, they knew about it the day they took possession, so that was in place at that time.
Well, I'm trying to give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. If somebody reported them on day one summer, how long would it take for fines to start accruing? How long would they have to fix it? In other words, if it was a fresh code enforcement issue, would they start getting fines within 6 months?
Typically, yes.
Okay, it would go before the code enforcement board though, right?
Mhm.
And then they would give an order to fix it and then have 30 days to fix it or whatever.
Yep. But this has already been for the
I
code
understand,
enforcement.
I understand.
Now,
Just shy. Usually the code board orders just shy of 30 days after it's been to hearing, unless they've made special
And how long does it typically
circumstances.
take to get the hearing?
Code
60
board
days?
meets every 2 months.
Okay. What my point is, Chuck, is if we took
I mean, if you want to charge them for
3 months worth of violations,
but
which is, I understand what you're saying.
Okay, but they are, at the time they took possession, it already had the lien in place, they knew it had the lien in place, it had already been adjudicated to code enforcement. I can see the 30 days, because that's what we would give them to fix it if we set a code enforcement today, but they had 30 days and they still didn't get it fixed. And so,
If you're looking at 5 months at 30 days per month, on average, you're looking at 15,000
without interest.
without interest.
All right, I'll pull my motion. Chuck, you make whatever motion you want to make.
I would make a motion that we reduce the code enforcement lien to $15,000.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, further discussion? I'm not really a fan of us using things like this to get a windfall for the county. And I understand you gotta have teeth, I understand all that, but for me, if we can collect the hard cost and correct the violation, that needs to be our goal, I mean,
And I agree. But in this case, Chuck is right. They knew when, if I bought the property and I knew I had a violation and especially that kind of violation that a child could walk over from any other piece of property, fall in that pool and drown, I'm gonna fix it pretty quick.
And I bought a house before they had code violations in Tarpine and immediately started to tear down a shed that was built illegally, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I went to them and said, hey, I bought this, it's a foreclosure, I'm gonna tear all this stuff down, and I did. So, the only thing I don't like about this whole thing is the arbitrary number we're using. I can't go back and say, how did you come up with that number? We don't have to do that, though, do we? We don't have to justify the number, we can reduce it, whatever we want to reduce it.
You don't, I mean, you're not, it's, There is some methodology to it, but you also don't have, you have a
You could do the-
$48,000
full-
lien here.
The full
Yeah.
lien, yeah.
Well, the thing I don't like about what the property owner did is wrote in there about the hood and thing. I didn't know it was a tarp with 2x4s on it. I mean, anybody would know that's not a approved method to secure.
And you told them, excuse me, Randy, you told them at that point that was not going to suffice.
Correct.
Okay.
I've never even heard of a HUD approved.
That to me is more
Pool cover,
dangerous,
so-
because the kid, nobody.
I do HUD
yeah, they
loans,
could
I
just
do FHA loans.
Walk on the tarp, I mean.
That's
I've
the
never heard
worst
of
thing.
that either.
Yeah.
I agree with both of you, you know, but if you know something and you don't do it, that's just,
And they didn't live there, right? This was a
No,
probate,
these are the.
they inherited the property.
They didn't, well, no, I'm not talking about the people that inherited the property. I'm talking about the people, the
Investment
bank that
group.
assumed the possession.
Did anybody live at this house during this time that this pool was there?
No, it was vacant.
Okay.
so who pays the fine, the bank or the homeowner?
The homeowners didn't have, it's been ownership has been transferred back to the
MCM
bank.
Capital
Okay.
Partners,
Because
correct?
the homeowners, they inherited the property and then basically abandoned it to foreclosure.
Okay.
So the bank owns it.
The bank
Yeah.
owns it, and the bank is the one, the bank is the one that didn't protect our community.
Well, I think we ought to levy the
No, don't say it, Jerry.
I knew where that was going.
How to apply the same logic to a bank you would a
I
homeowner.
don't think it's a bank, right? It's an LLC that is the current owner. Is that right, Summer? MCM Capital Properties?
That's correct.
So it's not the bank.
Well, 15,000, I guess, is better than 48,000 any day of the week. Code Enforcement Board recommended don't waive any of it, right?
Correct.
They don't have the power to set a number though, and we do.
321,000.
They could make a recommendation on any number.
No.
This is not
Sure.
somebody, this is a $300,000 house. Okay? This is not something they're gonna walk away from.
Let's giddy up.
Do we know if there's a mortgage on this property now, or was it a cash purchase?
The bank owns it.
I'm not sure. The
I don't think the
bank,
bank owns it, no.
as I understand it,
It's like an investment.
as I understand
That
it,
should be
the
irrelevant
bank
to
the original mortgage holder foreclosed on it, and this subsidiary, or this other LLC, purchased a group of properties. and
Right.
This was one within that group from the mortgage company.
The only reason I ask if there's a current mortgage that's financed, you know, with MCM Capital is if they financed it and if they have title insurance, you know, I mean, we do loans and we wouldn't close with an outstanding lien. We'd make it,
Sure.
we'd make them clear it up before we would finance on a new owner.
Well,
But
that's
it-
what-
but if they
they're trying to
paid
sell this,
cash-
And they're gonna settle this quickly.
Yeah.
If a kid fell in there and had drowned.
And what would we
and-
be saying?
Well, we'd done our job, but I guarantee it would have cost them more than $15,000 or $35,000, whatever.
Or an insurance company at least.
What was your motion, Chuck?
15.
15?
And we have a motion and a second. Further discussion on that? Hear none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Passes 5-0.
I have one question for someone. How do, and I know the answer to this, how do we figure out bad properties? Because I know you could go down the road and I could find 200 properties tomorrow that are dilapidated, windows down, doors off.
Complaint driven.
Yeah.
If I turned in those 200 properties, we would go after those 200 properties.
Correct. As long as you leave your name and your phone number or your address, because it's not anonymous.
That's why we got rid of anonymous county commissioner complaint.
May I just get a clarification on the motion?
Here we go.
It was to reduce to $15,000. Is there a 60-day window on that, or was there not a time frame for that reduction to apply?
I don't think he put it in his motion, he just said 15,000.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want
Yeah,
to revisit that?
And they're gonna settle it anyway because it's,
I'd give him, since we didn't reduce it, I'd, give him a little bit more time, I guess.
yep,
It's there.
it's there.
Ain't going
Well,
away.
how much time do you want to give them? 90 days?
No.
What's typical? What's,
We usually say 60.
The last one or two you've seen has been a 60-day time limit. Previous ones to that, you did not attach a time limit.
Ones that because we didn't forgive the whole code enforcement lien. What about the ones where we don't forgive it? Do we still only give them 60 days to pay it?
That's what you did on the last one, yes, sir.
The last one tonight?
The last one previous at a
Didn't wait.
few months ago.
That's up to you, Chuck.
Is there not a policy, if we don't specify a time frame? Is there not?
That was a new policy we discussed at the previous hearing for lien reduction a few months ago, was attaching that, and you guys attached it that night. Cases previous to that, you did not attach a time limit on.
Since it's become policy, let's go ahead with a 60-day time frame. Otherwise, it goes back to the 43.
You want a separate vote on that?
Make a new motion on that.
Okay, I would make a motion we attach a 60-day time frame to this reduction.
Motion second, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Keep it clean. Okay, that'll move us into public hearing, item number 7.
Mr. Chairman, this is a public hearing. It's on your annual resolution of intent. This is a resolution that authorizes you to pursue assessment programs and put them on the tax bill next year if you so choose.
Motion to approve to conduct the public hearing and adopt the resolution relating to use the uniform method of collecting annual non-ad valorem special assessments.
Second.
Motion and second, any citizens? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. No planning and zoning. We'll go to commissioner agenda items. Commissioner Moore.
Okay, my agenda item basically is not so much a change to the current plan, but if you have a strip center, and you're getting 35% of the space on the frontage, and you've got 15 units coming out through there, it's generally what happens. But if you take like Rocky's down at the intersection, he has this huge building, and the 35% of that big space he would basically like, and I can understand, I would want that myself, that he could put some of that space that's not occupied by the 35% of the front to have that on the side of the building as part of the display. It doesn't change what we've got, but just a little bit, but it just allows where you have a large building like that to get some signage on
How would
it.
this affect a Walmart, for example?
Yeah, or any, yeah, these
Would
are,
this affect a Walmart, Summer? Would they have to do anything different today than they did when they built?
Walmart's within the Crawfordville Town Plan, so I
Okay.
think
this
that would be a
is
different
outside the
scenario.
Crawfordville Town Plan, so it doesn't, additionally, just like his canopies, almost everybody will have their gas prices on their canopies. And this would give him or anybody else to occupy 25% of the front of any part of that canopy with, say, a gas price sign or whatever.
What about the one that just got built at Shell Point Road? Spring Creek?
Their signs comply with the current ordinance.
Do they have a gas price sign there?
They do.
Yeah, but basically, I don't think we have anything that pertains to banners, not banners necessarily, but a stripe around the top of the canopy or a lighted part. Sometimes you will have say a 12-inch neon coming around the top of your building or whatever, and this basically allows that to do. It doesn't clutter up the building. It just lets someone with a large building be able to market more of his building space.
So is that the problem, that 35% is not enough space?
We're at 32 now, or
What the current ordinance says for single occupancy buildings outside of the Crawfordville Town Plan area is that they can have an aggregate square footage of 128 as a combination of wall signs and freestanding signage.
and if you take that 128 and apply it to a big building, it comes out to be almost nothing.
What if we take that 28 and we apply it to each road frontage? Because in their
Yeah.
case, they've got 3 roads that they front, so
That would be fine, because he's still just putting 28 square feet on a road frontage. That would work also.
or should we exclude the gas price sign, if that's a separate sign? It's
Well,
not
the gas
advertising the business, it's just informing the public.
We can't regulate the content.
The
so we have
canopies
to be
are
careful what
separate
we-
from the building.
Yeah.
So if we're running, if we're running 25%, that's not a lot. At least 75% of that face, still free.
I'd say, I think it makes sense to tie it to road frontage. Someone has one road, two roads, three roads, then,
But the bigger the bigger the building, the bigger the signs are allowed to be, right? Because you get a percentage of your building.
Yes.
So a bigger building,
is that right? I think we're
That's,
still
that's
limited.
what he's proposing.
Right.
It applies to that space above the...
let me understand. So right now it says 128 period, no matter how big your building is.
Correct.
It does not say anything about if you have a Walmart, you can, and just the W in Walmart may take up 128 square feet. Just for example, let's say it's outside of the town plan. We don't have any provision to allow for a larger building to get more. It's not
No.
indexed.
No.
I mean, if we did anything, I could halfway understand that. I don't know about this percent, this or that. I'd rather make it simple if we're going to do something.
Or tie it to site acreage or something.
The size of the building. I mean, the square foot of frontage that fronts a road where somebody's going to put a sign, and then, if it goes 128 is the base up to 10,000 square feet, whatever, I don't know, and then it increases for X amount after that.
Okay,
It's not going to happen in a lot of scenarios.
now, the business community basically developed this landscape ordinance. They looked at all this thing and sign
Sign.
ordinance, excuse me, sign ordinance. And, they looked at the trade-off between trashing up your community and advertising for the business. And this is where they came up with, okay? Now, you're wanting to, for a specific business, you wanted to make an exception because he's got 3 roads going around his parcel. Okay, well, one of the roads is basically not in existence anymore, so I wouldn't...
I don't know, it's still got a lot of traffic on that road.
Well,
I don't know why anyone uses that road.
I don't know
but-
why anyone uses
but
it,
they
but we want
do.
to discourage that usage, though. And so, I have real problems, changing our ordinance for one business when the business community developed this whole proposal and this whole plan for how to advertise in our community.
Well, when you take 128 square feet, if you're doing it on the strip center, there's a disconnect between the amount of visibility that a strip center can have on a 20-foot road frontage, as opposed to what a building, a single occupancy building can have that's got a huge face on it. He may want to put a sign that says deli. Well, he wouldn't be able to do that. He might want to have fish bait on the side or whatever.
What does it say in the
So
Crawfordville
he's
town plan?
limited in what he can do to promote his business without going over this 128 square feet sign. The percentage is pretty much the same as the percentages we have now, but I'm just saying it's a percentage on each front.
What's in, if this was in the Crawfordville town plan, what would apply?
Single occupancy in the Crawfordville Town Plan allows a maximum of 100 square feet aggregate total between wall signage and
So it would be
freestanding.
less than this. Okay.
Does our ordinance, Summer, speak to multiple road, a building that's facing multiple roads? Does that take it into consideration?
It allows for one freestanding side per road frontage, but you still can't exceed that aggregate square footage total.
That to me is probably where that needs to be shifted. There's nothing against, this is where we haven't had this in the past. And I think maybe that's where, if you look at anything, that would be what to look at is having, I agree with you, having, if you're able to do it on 319, you should be able to do it on 98 as far as the frontage is concerned and the signage. And
Basically,
you would multiply your footage by 2.
The 128 on...
Can we let them
That's one
hash
way of
this out,
doing it.
Jerry, and bring us back?
Yeah, I'd say we got a lot of stuff to do. Let us put this in the
I
burner.
want to vote on this tonight. I'm not adverse to what you're saying, but I don't know if I want to vote on this. I want to think some more about what David has said. Now, that same would be applicable to the store that just got built.
that just
Spring
got
Creek
built.
Highway.
Yeah, that's the problem we got, is other people are doing it, and we're making exceptions for Rockies.
They were in complete compliance, right?
They were in
Right.
compliance, and they were able to do their business.
Now, Chuck, back to what you said, the landscape sign ordinance people, bless their heart, they can't cover every contingency. So I'm surely, they're not superhuman, so they couldn't come up with the perfect code that would address everything. Everything needs tweaking from time to time. We saw this with the wetlands
Y'all
ordinance.
just did this. This board, not the sitting board, but the last board just
Just did
did
this.
this.
Well, I understand that, but
And we
again,
expanded it. It was before, it was like 32 square feet or something, right? I mean, the 128 is an improvement, an increasing of the
I
sign.
wish we'd have just left
But
it like it used to be before we let the business people get a hold of it, because it really worked like it was. Now we got a mess, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, but we had a lot of non-conforming
Yeah.
signs.
Yeah.
Well,
We're
that-
talking about, as we stand now, he can only use 128 square feet.
Correct.
That's on his whole building. That's just not
and the
fair.
sign, and the road
But
sign, right?
but Jerry, he knew that,
That's one person.
just
We
like the
can't
guy
design a
down at
rule.
Spring Creek knew. I mean, they knew what they had to work with, so they made it work. If you go down there, it looks nice. And Rockies looks nice, except he just don't have a sign to tell them what the gas price is,
Which is
Well,
making a
which
lot
he
of
should've-
people mad.
which he should
Well,
have taken into
his-
account.
His sign in Perry, he doesn't put gas prices on it, so it's just a advertisement board. Okay?
There's no gas prices in Perry.
And I don't mind tweaking the
Well, the
ordinance.
next guy's going to come down the road. Let's just forget about him. The next guy's going to come down the road, and I'm going to agree with the next guy
Well-
that this same thing should be in place.
But like David said earlier today, if we have a standard and we apply it equally to everybody, then can they complain? Yes. And should we change it? Maybe. But still, there's a standard, and that's what we have in place now, and everybody's supposed to comply with that standard. And they knew what they had going into it, and he chose to use his square footage on the side of his building. And maybe the hindsight being 20/20, maybe that wasn't a wise choice. He should have held back some so he could put him a little sign out by the road.
Here's a person spending $5 million in our community, and you say, yeah, of course he should have known, whatever. He's spending $5 million on his building. He's going to put substantial taxes into our community, hire a substantial number of people. And we're just telling him and the next guy that comes down the road that we just want you to have this small sign here. We don't want you to advertise your product.
I didn't say that,
Oh.
Jerry. I said he had the same standard that everybody else, just like go look at the station at Spring Creek. It looks nice, and he's got a roadside sign, and it's, I mean, surely Rockies could have done the same thing, or the next guy who comes along. I'm not picking on Rockies.
Well, I think you let us take a look at it and bring something back, because we'll figure out a tweak in there somewhere.
If there's a tweak that makes logical sense and is applied fairly,
The
Right.
best thing you can tweak it is use a percentage of the building face.
Very
I'm
well
not
may be.
necessarily adverse to that, Jerry. I'm really not.
Yep.
Because,
The square.
Summer, let me
square
ask you this, could the Walmart as it exists today exist?
It's signage.
They came in? Yeah. I wouldn't think so. If they only,
No, I don't believe it would.
if they only
I
get
don't believe
100
it would
square
comply
feet.
with
But on the
today's.
same note, Taco Bell made it, right?
Yes.
The auto
O'Reilly's.
parts store made it. Zaxby's probably didn't. That was beforehand.
Prime Meridian
There was
Bank.
some
Prime
Prime
Meridian Bank
Meridian.
made it.
there was some friction with
So-
O'Reilly's, and I think they finally
They finally
came
acquiesced.
around, but
Yeah.
So it's not a
they weren't happy either.
super onerous rule. It is possible to comply with, even with a harder standard in the Crawfordsville Town Plan. The thing I could maybe understand would be the double road frontage.
If I,
Yeah, I think the double road frontage, and Rockies is a tweener building, now that I'm thinking about it a little bit. It's a tweener building. It's not a Walmart.
if-
It's not a small gas station.
if I build a strip center, or anybody builds a strip center, and they've got 80 square feet, it's above the awning, above the glass, and they have 4 by 20. The spaces are 20 foot, and it's 4 foot up there. That's 80 square feet. We allow that person about 30% of that space, a 2 by 16. We allow that person about 32 feet. We allow them 30% of the space that they occupy to be for signs. I think that we should switch this thing around and let them have 30% of their available space above their awnings for signage. Here again, if you got a strip center and you look above the strip center and it's 20 foot wide and 4 foot up, that's 80 square feet. And the sign, I require it to be 2 foot by 16. So I'm requiring 32 feet. That's about 32% of the available space.
What you're saying, I think what you're trying to say is that if you section your building up, you can greatly increase the amount of sign frontage you put on it.
Let him use 32% of his frontage
Is
wherever he
that what I'm
wants to
saying?
use it.
What you're saying is, I don't want to use Rockies, for example. Let's say
Anybody.
Marshall Spears building, okay? If it's just a single building, he gets X amount of feet. But if he had that thing sectioned up into 5 different tenants, he could maybe have 5 times as many signs out in the road and still be in compliance.
He can have 32% if he's a strip center and I got 20 stores. Each one of those stores can have 32%.
I understand what you're saying.
So the whole frontage can have 32%.
You're talking about the linear feet at the
Yes.
front of the building.
Yes, or linear and
He's talking about area.
vertical. It's a combination of the two. It's
The square footage
percentage
of the front itself.
Yeah, above the windows and above the awning, not the whole building frontage.
I think his point is that when you have a strip mall,
But that,
your total signs out there are going to be greatly increased versus if you were a single occupancy building.
well, we give the individual in a strip mall, we give him 30% of his
I understand.
frontage above the awning
awning, yes,
and above the
yes,
windows.
Yes, I understand.
I would say basically a big store comes into town, that space above the windows and above the awnings, 30%. You take a Walmart or any major grocers, they're going to want to advertise their drugs, they're going to want to advertise their deli, they're going to want to advertise their store. Now, in the case of a service station like this, and this is a nice addition to our community, he's got to be able to put something on that canopy out front. He's got to be able to put his gas prices on the canopy where people can see them. I mean, we come back with a percentage.
I think seeing a building and an example would help, and seeing multi-tenants would help to kind of get a comparison. You know, I think that we definitely need to have some kind of accommodation for multiple roads, and maybe even accommodation for square footage or linear footage or whatever.
As you travel, if you look at a strip center, generally speaking,
Mhm.
each one of those spaces is using 30% of the space above their awning.
So
Have you
right
ever
now,
been to
we've got a
Hilton Head?
building that's 100 square feet and another building that's 10,000 square feet have the same sign requirements.
Technically, you could say that,
I mean, right now, that would be the case.
yeah.
If you build a 10 by 10 building and open up a store, you're going to have the exact same sign requirements as
That's
Rockies
correct.
would
It's
have.
disproportionate
Yeah,
to the size of your building.
yeah. I think there ought to be some kind of accommodation for scale.
I hate to be whatever for Rocky, but it's just unfair. It's basically.
Well, this doesn't apply to just him. This is just what brought
I agree with you,
it
if we're
to
gonna-
attention.
but let's change it and make it applicable to everybody going forward. I don't know how we go back. Maybe we can, but
Well, I think basically we can probably do what we want to.
No, we can't.
no, we can't.
No, sir.
With a 3 vote, you basically can.
Change the ordinance.
Change the
Change the
ordinance.
ordinance.
Not give an exemption. Remember, Mike went through that on
Well, I'm
the
not
church
talking
sign.
I'm not talking about giving an exception.
If you're talking about changing the ordinance, you're exactly right.
Yeah,
And I'll
That's
go
the
along
way
with
to
that.
do it.
okay.
That's the way to
I'm
do it.
fine with that.
But we can't just vote to ignore the.
I
Tell them to do what
understand
he
that.
wants.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do right here is change it.
So, you want us to vote on this, or do you want them to bring it back?
Let them bring it back, but bring it back as a percentage of the face.
No, you can't direct that.
We'll look at it. I think one of the biggest
Jerry
things
says
that
he
we
wants
can
to have
do.
some input on it.
Well, the biggest thing is to look at the multiple faced roads. That's what I see as the biggest thing
That
that you
is,
got.
we
Yeah,
have told
that's-
him that he can only use his
Because I
128
think-
on the front of his building.
But I think your square footage will work out on your strip centers, which hopefully you don't get any more of those. But with strip centers, I think your existing square footage will probably work out just the way you're looking at it, probably about 32%. So, but as it is today, but we'll see.
Very good. That ends our commissioner agenda items. County attorney,
Nothing this evening.
county administrator.
Yes, the week of October 16th, we're going to be scheduling a meeting of the Magnolia and Wakulla Gardens owners for folks that are in Phase 1 and Phase 2 of our sewer system and road paving. We'll be scheduling that meeting and sending that out. We'll be hanging door knockers or whatever you call those things.
Door hangers.
Yeah, we'll be hanging those in a better attempt to try to, this is another way of just trying to get it out to them a little bit better than sending a letter. So we'll be doing that. We'll let you know what date that is. We
Put a
select.
flashing sign out there, David?
What's that?
You get the sheriff's department signed.
We could do that. That way we
Everybody
can
see
change
that.
it over to so Jessica's texting and
Yes.
driving, so. October 17th, I'm sorry, at 6 o'clock, community center. They don't tell me that stuff. So anyway, but Phase 1 sewer is almost completed as far as all the major infrastructure inside the right-of-ways. Road prep will start here shortly. Phase 2, we were approved to move forward there, so that's we'll be bringing that to you guys, the contract for extending the existing contract for Phase 2 sewer, so that'll be coming back for you guys. Out of all this coming up year, we'll also be bringing you in the second meeting in November our capital spending plan, and that'll be coming to you in November. We're looking at paving 30 roads. That's converting dirt roads over to asphalt roads, and big majority of that is Magnolia and Wakulla Gardens paving behind the sewer. That'll make itself out all through the year.
And you're not talking about paving them in November, you're talking about just bringing the list out.
We're going to be
It'll
bringing
over
the list.
years,
That's
right?
right. That's
Yep.
right. It'll be over the year. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And that, and also other capital, ESG, our public works guys, they're working on the on what resurfacing projects we're going to be bringing back. So we'll be meeting with them on that. We'll be starting to tie in sewer homes to the sewer, probably starting in January, the way it looks right now, which is encouraging. Otter Lake Road paving will be done in about 2 weeks, according to Justin. If it doesn't work, get the guy in the blue shirt there. So that'll be
Blue
the
check shirt.
sidewalks.
How about, I'll interrupt you there just a moment, David, on Otter Lake.
Uh-huh.
We're talking about our common devices.
We'll have to come back and do the calming devices.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
okay,
Yes,
all
sir.
right.
The sidewalk will be, so that's part of sidewalk is done as well.
Wait for money.
Rock Landing, the pier is almost complete. That'll be wrapped up here shortly. And the net is working with ESG, and we're going to, hopefully she wants to be able to turn that package in this week to FEMA for our cleanup, if at all possible. So she's working hard on that. But she is working on that and wrapping it up. We're done with all our operations there, so she's wrapping that up.
Okay.
David, at one time, I talked to you about what we'll call Magnolia Gardens, I talked to you about the stormwater fee I was thinking about, and you said you were going to come back with a
Yes, I'm getting ready to.
comprehensive
I've got
recommendation.
I'm waiting on, in fact, I'm waiting on Louis on one thing, and then I'm ready to come back to you.
Okay.
On your,
That'll probably be in November, maybe November, or the meeting in December.
What about the inverse Crown Road? What do we want to do about that? Let it ride?
I've asked ESG about that. That's, ball's in their court there.
Emily Lane?
Emily Lane, you went and looked at it?
I didn't, no.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
It's holding water at reverse.
Yeah, it's, and why it was inverted that heavily, I'll never know.
I had some people call me on, we have cut their
Ooh,
service
we didn't get charged.
in doing our work, and I told them it was part of it, but maybe with our contractors, if they cut something, somebody could be there to put that thing back
Not
together.
like cable or
Yeah.
whatever. We meet with all those contractors and we show them where we're going.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to have people on site. And I was over there the other day and they were fixing stuff
Yeah.
back, but it's.
This lady was out of cell service, and she was,
We're gonna have to-
Yeah, and it's not easy going in these
I
existing
know.
neighborhoods digging an 18-foot hole.
Yeah. Dave, we're going to have
But
to
you're
fill
right.
up Emily Lane to fix it, right?
Yeah, we're
Might
gonna
as
do
well bite the
something.
bullet and just figure out what
Yeah,
we're gonna do.
we gotta do something there. I'm waiting for ESG. They're gonna be getting us back something of what.
At least
they
they'll have a good
wanna
base
do.
on it.
They'll have a heck of a base.
You couldn't just put an angled pour over it?
Well,
It's inverted
you're
as
probably
bad
gonna
as
have to,
David
as
said.
bad as it's inverted, it's, some of it can stay inverted, the rest of it's gonna need to be milled and just put and recrowned.
We did a little section of East Ivan, was Ivan Church Road up there, where they had a little spot where you couldn't get
Yeah.
swells, and we put a little, Aubrey did, put a little reverse crown in a little bit of it, but it went and
Yeah.
turned off into a wetland.
That's the problem is you, and then when you invert your,
Brevity Spear.
yeah, when you invert your crowns, you do them just,
Just a
real
little bit.
slight, just a
And it
real
had
slight.
downhill
But
run
this is
to it.
like a,
Yeah.
it's like the Grand
It
Canyon.
holds water, for
So,
sure.
It's a bird bath,
Yeah.
big bird bath.
It's an extreme bird bath. So anyway, they're working on that, and they're gonna have something this week on that, so. All right, other than that, that's all I got.
We take care of grading on Wakulla Beach Road, correct? We grade that entire
sir.
thing?
Mhm.
I went down there yesterday, and man, that thing looks fantastic.
Does it? Good.
They pulled those ditches up real nice. It's got a real good crown on it. Yeah, it looks real good.
That's your new,
Wakulla
your
Beach
new,
Road.
That
yeah,
road's a
Mike
nightmare.
took
It
over
looks
for all
good.
that,
Right
so.
down it right now.
Until the water washed
Oh, I
into
know.
it again.
It gets beat out, but they pulled those ditches up. I mean, there's a.
Well, I can tell you, Mike,
Y'all
is-
fix Ted Langston Road like that then? Nanette, is it
Now,
fixed?
Wakulla Beach is not as wide as it used to be. You lose a little bit when you pull them ditches,
Oh,
but
Ted Langston Road.
but it looks-
When I start getting calls from Ted Langston Road folks in Smith Creek, you know it's bad.
yeah.
well, I can tell you,
Last time I
Ned,
looked at it, it was much
Ned
better.
Noble's in the back, he does a good job, and, and also, Mike King he's been promoted up, and he's kind of doing a little bit of everything, but he's in charge of road and bridge.
The guy with the blue
And-
shirt on.
The guy with the blue shirt
Other
on.
blue shirt.
And, also right now they're trying to get him out, he's double doing the water system for River Sink and all that stuff, but also they hired Jamie Crum, that makes a dynamic duo, so they're really doing a
Good
good
fellow.
job straightening up a lot of stuff.
There's people in
They're doing
Smith
a
Creek
great
still don't
job.
have power and don't complain about it, right, Nanette?
Now, is Jamie working for us now?
Last year's hurricane.
So we're proud to have him, and it's got a good system going right now on that, as far as that's concerned.
Still don't complain. We had to take Richard the generator,
All right,
but I mean, last year when y'all had a hurricane, I had to call, my mom called me, call Richard, he ain't got no power, he won't ask for help.
Patty? Citizens? No citizens? Discussion items?
Yeah, I think, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you're.
Well, I didn't have anything.
Okay. Now, am I to understand, David, we're going on the forfeiture and so forth, are you going to bring back something like a cost plus 30%?
Yes, some of it
Okay,
is, yes.
all right. Basically, everybody needs to know that this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So, that's very important. So I imagine probably 1 out of 3 women are going to have breast cancer at some point in their life. So it's very important that you get those early screenings. And I guess that's about all that I have.
Very good. I don't have anything.
Nothing.
I showed y'all some pictures of, I finally found a use for old political signs, Jerry. When we had that hurricane, I got so bored, you can make shelves out of them real easy in your garage. I made a little tray in case Mike brings home another old piece of junk car that leaks oil. You can make a tray to put underneath it to hold oil. So there are uses for old political
I made a mistake. I'll interrupt you there a second. I made a mistake with mine. I gave them to the sheriff's department with my picture on them,
That's what Mike did.
and they shot them up. And they didn't turn them around. They were firing at me.
Randy's on Pinterest now. He's a
What is that?
you don't want to know.
I made a little tray where every
Kraft King.
everybody red-blooded American's got a coffee can full of nuts and bolts that you don't want to dump out because you got to pick
That's
them all
right.
up.
That's the most valuable
Made
thing
a
there
little
is.
scoop. Motion to adjourn.
Stand adjourned. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Pinterest Randy.
What's I gave mine to Sheriff?
I'm on Google it.
Social media
Social
page.
media page.
No, it's like arts and crafts.
My wife lives on it.
Really?